All right, guys, thank you so much. This is episode 4 of United and Everything Football. We are once again back here with you. If you are new to this channel, please remember to hit the subscribe button. Also, hit the notification button such that when we release new episodes of this podcast, you'll be notified and you can immediately join us and have a great time with us. Thank you so much. It's always been a pleasure to be here. Kwame Echubu has always been with me. His name is Kwame and my name is Kwame. Kwame, we are back once again on episode. This time around, we are looking at something very interesting. But how have you been doing? How have you been feeling? I mean, first 2 games, won the Wolves game in a manner which wasn't so convincing. But our second game played very well in the first half. But what do you really make of it? But how have you been? Let me ask you that first. How have you been?
I've been good. It's just how 11 footballers, 11 people can just break your whole mood for the entire week. Yeah. Just crazy, but then yeah.
The whole weekend was a real mess, right?
Messed up, completely. Whenever United loses, it affects everything else.
It affects everything that we do. As a United fan, clearly is that a feeling? Has it been a feeling we've gotten used to over the last 10 years since the exit of Sir Alex Ferguson? I mean, it hasn't been easy for us.
We really haven't really gotten used to this because the disappointment hits every single time.
Perhaps that's why we are called the tricky Reds. You know, at some point we are, you know. All right, guys, so that's exactly what we'll be doing today. So we'll be doing a review of the game against Tottenham Spurs, where we lost by 2-0, and then we'll quickly delve into the game against Nottingham Forest, and we'll look at exactly what we can do in that game to get back to winning ways. We have a record to protect at home. Over the last 30 games, we have not lost a match at Old Trafford. Yes, over the last 30 games, and Erik ten Hag has succeeded in making Old Trafford a fortress. So we'll get into that. But first, Kwame, let's look at the game against Tottenham Hotspurs. Are we right when we say it was a game of 2 halves? Given the way we played in the first half, you know, created very good chances, but came in the second half and we just had to mess everything up. What did you make of the game? What went through your mind as you watched the game as we played against Spurs?
I think we did react after our poor performance against Wolverhampton. We came out of the blocks flying. We did create some gilt-edged opportunities, chances you expect us to bury. Unfortunately, we missed them. I think the first half, I would say it was a better performance than the one against Wolves, but I'd still say it was a balanced first half because Spurs did create some chances of their own. Let's not kid ourselves. They did create some good chances of their own. Onana came to the rescue a couple of times. They had the crossbar and the post a couple of times, but then we had clearer opportunities to take the lead. Yeah. None better than the one Bruno missed a few minutes before halftime. That was a sitter. He should be put in that way. And that's been the story of Manchester United under Ten Hag, to be honest. We create loads of chances and we just aren't prolific enough in front of goal, especially in the Premier League. So, yeah, we're either relying on clean sheets to, you know, just win the game by the odd goal, or we just don't score enough goals, so we don't accumulate enough points.
What has actually been the problem?
All right, so first of all, he's been dealing with the fact that he hasn't had number 9 since he took charge. He got rid of Ronaldo, who was the main man when he did come in because of issues that are well documented. Yeah. And he has never really replaced that. He has never really replaced Ronaldo with somebody competent enough to lead the line. He has finally been able to sign a striker that many people are skeptical about because of his age, because of his experience, but he's a number 9 regardless. And so I think that's the main problem. Other players haven't chipped in as much as they need to, except for Marcus Rashford. And so we are badly in need of goals up front. Our forwards aren't misfiring all the time,
Yeah.
and then he hasn't had a proper number nine. So yeah, that's where we are.
But I don't know. Aside the fact that we've lacked a proper number nine, some few observations I've made has to do with our forward line and the pattern in terms of the way we want to play amongst our
Yeah,
forward line. Clearly, our forward line hasn't been prolific enough. Last season, if you look at the gap between Marcus Rashford and the person who was second highest in terms of our goal tally, that was huge. So we eventually became Rashford FC, and everything about us. And anytime Rashford goes down, we have our hands in our head trying to figure out what the next options would be for us. Um, don't you think coaching has also played a role in this whole difficulty in scoring goals? Where you'd expect that players will chip in a lot more goals and all of that. Is it that coaching also has played a role, or the whole front line has been inexperienced?
Let me first start with, I don't think it's a problem with tactics because we do create chances. That's the thing. But then what one huge criticism I have of Eric Ten Hag, it's that he is a bit loyal and persistent with a couple of players
Yes,
who, haven't proven to be effective, but then keep getting opportunities. I think we all know who I'm going to mention here.
yes,
Anthony.
yes,
Anthony is a 100 million euro signing, and I think the manager is more than determined to prove why he had forced the club
yes,
to make such a huge outlay on signing the boy. But then he hasn't really, lived up to expectations. Yet he keeps getting picked ahead of Sancho. I'm not saying Sancho has had a blistering time under Eric Ten Hag, but then if you are never going to get the opportunity, despite the fact that the person playing ahead of you isn't pulling his weight, it begs the question, is he being fair as a manager in terms of his selections? And I don't think he has actually been fair. So he should mix it up a bit. The front line isn't fluid. I
yes,
think that's the word we
yes,
are all alluding to. It's not fluid enough. His selection for the first two games, Garnacho, Rashford down the middle, Anthony, hasn't worked. I think he should. It still comes down to whether he has a centre forward available. I think that makes his job a little bit more easier because he can move Rashford to the left and then probably change Anthony on the right and play Sancho there or Pelistri there to see whether that may work. Pelistri may be going out a lot, so he may not be a long-term option, but then Jadon Sancho can always play there. So I think he should try something different. It's it's it was quite obvious in the first half of the Spurs game that whenever the ball did go up front, decision making was a problem from Garnacho. Decision making was a problem from Anthony.
mhm,
Rashford did once again look lost
yeah,
playing the centre forward position. His body language wasn't great. He just doesn't have the ability to hold the ball up. He doesn't have the ability to, be patient enough and then know which channels to run into. He's almost literally doing things as a wide forward in the centre forward position, which is not appropriate. Let's be honest, that second half,
mhm,
if you're going to break down the Spurs game in totality, that second half was atrocious. It was terrible. Spurs completely took over the game. Bissouma in midfield was running the show. Casemiro once again looked leggy. There's always been this thing about Casemiro, even from his Madrid days, that he never really starts seasons well. He always gets better as
as the
games go by.
season.
And then it's quite evident now that he, even from preseason, we used to say that he just doesn't look himself.
Yeah.
I don't think he is finished as many people are trying to.
Mhm.
But then he could also do with someone who could ably compete in his position. I think the coach did plan to have Kobe Menu to be that guy. But then now that Kobe Menu is injured, there is not really anybody who can step into Casemiro's shoes because it seems uh, McTominay has been cancelled, sort
Yeah.
of. So yeah, so I think we have problems at the start of the season, which have culminated in our performances and our results. And some of these problems can be solved with just a few days left in the window. Others too can just come down to the fact that the manager should be able to, accept
You,
that
you,
there are
you,
some things that are not
yeah,
necessarily working.
exactly. You make mention of the midfield, and it brings my attention to a very interesting stat that we are projecting on the screens right now. Dribbled past in the whole of the league, and that's the Man United midfield trio of
Yeah.
Casemiro, of Bruno Fernandes, and then Mason Mount. Why? I
You
seem not
can't.
to understand.
All
Why?
right. So
I don't know what you have to say with regards to
All
that.
right, so it's a take I had from the first game compared to the second one. So the
Yeah.
first game he had more of Mason Mount playing an advanced role compared to Bruno Fernandes.
Yes.
The second game he switched it around. It was more like Mason Mount doing a job in and around Casemiro, and Bruno Fernandes playing in a more advanced
Yeah.
position. Just for Mason Mount's legs in and around Casemiro to compensate for the fact that Casemiro has been overrun
Yeah.
all the time. But come the second half, that plan wasn't even working again.
Yeah.
Our midfield got completely overrun like how it had
Mm-hmm.
been in the first game against Wolves. What this clearly points to is either this thing isn't working yet or it's never going to work.
Yeah.
It depends on which which school of thought you share. But there's some fans that just said right from the start that midfield isn't going to work. But then there are others like me who go like, let's just give it a few more games and see. After all, Ericsson isn't there,
Yeah.
doesn't have the legs yet. Last season, for most parts, I think it kind of worked.
Yeah.
So he's just thinking, Mount is a more like a quicker version of
Version of Ericsson.
Ericsson. He may not necessarily
He
have
doesn't have
the
the
dead ball
quality of
expertise or exactly, but then
passing
he
and
definitely
everything.
does have the legs to do it. But then off the back of what we've seen so far, it's clearly not working,
That's
evidenced by
true.
the stats that you just
That's true.
projected. So one of two things: either he switches it up a bit. He can, for instance, the big game that's coming up. We'll preview that big game
Yeah.
against uh, Arsenal,
Arsenal.
the,
Yeah.
the huge one against
Yeah.
Arsenal.
Yeah.
I think he could go with a midfield of a double six.
Yeah.
If we do sign Amrabat, that makes it great.
Much more
Amrabat,
ideal.
Casemiro. If we don't sign Amrabat, he could play, McTominay and
And Casemiro.
Casemiro, something he's never really ever done, but then that works with either Mount or Bruno in front, and either Mount or Bruno on the right hand side, and Rashford on the left hand side, and the center forward down the
All
middle.
right.
I think that also works, but that's for another day.
Okay, but talking of still on the midfield, there's been talk of the fact that we've lacked a controller in the midfield to, kind of dictate play because for me, one of the issues that I've had with our midfield in the first two games has been the issue where we are so quick to release the ball. I mean, the moment you release the ball, it gets to the forward line. It's either they are not in the right position or they make a wrong pass, which leads to turnovers, and then quickly we are outrun in midfield. Okay, so it's become a thing. What do you make of the fact that we don't have a certain profile in midfield that would help us retain the ball a lot more because Bruno Fernandez is not one that tries to hold on to the ball, tries to see a quick pass, raises his head, sends it in. Mason Mount is not that kind of a player. Casemiro is one player that gives the ball away a lot. So I don't know what you make of it. Do we need a controller? Do we
All
need a
right, so it all comes down to the kind of football that Eric Ten Hag wants to play. He's made mention of the fact that he wants to play transition football. And transition football, it's basically just getting the ball quick and forward as quickly as
Well,
possible.
watch
So
episode one. We explain transition football there.
exactly. So that's the thing. If the coach wants to play in a particular way,
Yeah.
he buys players to fit the way he wants to play. I
Okay.
think right now the problem that the team is having is taking care of the football in terms of, what, these players are supposed to know when a pass is on and when a pass is not on. They're supposed to be more measured about the way that they do things. if this is the coach's perspective as to how he wants to play,
Mhm.
it's very difficult to then emphasize the fact that we need a controller in there to slow things down for us. That sort of goes against what he's trying to do. But then again, it's also good to have such a profile of player in your team, just in case you say to yourself, you know, what we are trying to do right now, despite the fact that I had the idea, I can't be stubborn in my approach and keep forcing the idea when clearly, statistically and everything, it's not working.
Yeah.
You get it? So having that profile of player in your team allows you to switch things up when things aren't necessarily going your way. Christian Eriksen, do you think he's a controller?
I feel he has it within his locker. He's one person who is
He
very
slows
calm
things
on the
down,
ball.
doesn't he? He
He's yes,
slows things down and then plays things at his own pace.
exactly.
But
He
then
slows things.
we are sort of trying to move on from Christian Eriksen to Vita,
Getting
Vita,
the
Vita.
ball,
Do
move the
things
ball
quickly.
a lot more
Exactly.
quicker
So
to
so
you
yeah.
know.
So yeah, if we have to go back to Ericsson, it's not the worst idea in the world. But then going back in reverse, that's a defensive duties. Ericsson doesn't have the legs to cover ground. So you would say to yourself, why don't we get somebody in with more, control about him, more of like a box to box, like a Gravenbach,
Yeah,
Ryan Gravenbach.
yes, yeah.
Ryan Gravenbach is more of that sort of player. That's why some fans are advocating for the fact that we should probably try and do a deal for Bayern on loan so that financial fair play wise, even getting Amrabat and, you know, Ryan Gravenbach into the club at this particular point in time with all the injuries and all the issues that we've had in the past couple of games. I think that works for a lot of people. So let's just see how it goes. I doubt that could happen, but then based off our conversation right now, based off what we are saying in terms of whether we need a controller or not, Ryan Gravenbach does work in that he works. He
All right,
actually does
okay,
work.
all right, okay. So I really get that, and I feel that personally, I feel that we lose balls too easily in our games. We are not taking care of the football enough. I've been emphasizing this in the last couple of episodes on this podcast. I don't know why a club like Manchester United, with the kind of players we have, with the kind of coaches we have, try to lose that amount of football when we play against
It's
them.
not deliberate, is it?
I
I
know
just
it's not.
think it's more like something new that they are trying to do, and they're not doing it well for now. That's just how I see it.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it's still early days. Let's not exaggerate and think it's all doom and gloom. Come on, it's
No,
not doom
of
and
course,
gloom.
it's not.
I mean, it's just a couple of games in. We've won one, we've lost a big one.
Yes.
We still haven't cured our ailment of not being able to win games at top sites
Yes.
based off our first results in a big game.
Against yes.
So that still needs addressing. There's one coming up very soon. What you do expect is we'll talk about the Forest game. We put in a better performance against Forest, get better results, play better, get more confidence, and then we take that into another big game on the road, and hopefully we can be able to get something from
All
that
right.
game.
Okay. All right. So you just made mention of the Forest game. They lost their first game against Arsenal. And then in the next game against Sheffield United, won by 2 goals to 1 last week, Friday. Now they are coming back, made a couple of signings, let go a couple of players as well. Stuck to Steve Cooper. Last season, we met Forest 4 times. We won all 4 games. We played 2 times in the league, 2 times in the League Cup semi-final where we won all games. So they look like a team that's are not supposed to be tough customers for us based on the performance we saw of them or the performance we showed against them in the last 4 games last season. And also, given our record at Old Trafford, where we've played about 20 games without losing, 30 games without losing any game there. The last loss came against Real Sociedad, a very questionable loss in that game, but clearly it looks like Old Trafford is back as a fortress as we would all expect. Our issue has been away, but we'll tackle that issue in the subsequent episodes. But against Nottingham Forest, looking at the signings they've made, looking at the fact that they are 1 year or they've had 1 year experience in the league since they came back into the league. Um, what kind of threats do you think they pose to us going into this game, given our own performances in the last two games and all of that? What do you make of this game in
All
general?
right, so you made mention of our record there. Now these records came because the last episode we talked about our record at Spurs and that it's all gone to
It just
now.
went away just like that.
Yeah. but, but yeah, our record at Old Trafford under Eric Ten Hag has been great. It's been good. I think that's one of the first things he tried to establish when he did come to the club, that our home form needs to improve and we can build a good season off the back of solid home form.
Yes.
Ironically, that's just about how Forest have been able to remain in the Premier League and what they want to base their survival on home form. They don't do well on the road. Forest never does well on the road.
Yeah.
They did look um, good against Sheffield United. I think they won that game with a Chris
Mhm.
Wood header,
Yes.
2 goals to 1. That's the kind of game you expect Forest to win if they're going to remain in the league. Those
Yes.
are basically 6 pointers
Yes.
for them, relegation 6 pointers for them, despite how early that fixture was in the season. They wouldn't come to a place like Old Trafford expecting to get a result. But then we did see them in the second half against Arsenal.
Yes.
Arsenal took a 2-0 lead,
Mhm.
and then Palace did fight back. Elanga came off the bench and then gave them a bit of energy, a bit of
Yes.
bite.
Yes.
So they're not going to lay down low. We haven't started the season great either. So on the balance of it, you shouldn't expect the game to be a walk in the park. We have to fight for the 3 points. It's Old Trafford. It's Forest. I expect us to win.
Yeah.
We keep saying this every week.
Of
We
course,
expect us
we
to
have
win.
to. At Old Trafford, we expect
but
us
then,
to win
but
these.
then at Old Trafford against Forest, we should win. But then this time around, we are not only concerned about winning.
We are concerned about the way we will be playing,
This time around,
yes,
we are not only concerned about winning. We are
whether the
concerned
performance is encouraging enough,
now. Exactly. We
whether
need to put
yes,
in a
definitely a
performance.
performance. It's not just about getting the result and all of that. But I'll share with you an interesting statistic which we are projecting. If you look in this, since the start of this league, it's just been match day two. But if you're looking at the teams that have created the most chances, it has to be Brighton and Manchester United. But ask yourself, how many goals have Brighton scored? They've scored, I think, 8 or 9 goals so far in this league. They scored 4 at home, 4 away. United, 1 at home, 0 away. Brighton has created 38 chances. United has created 32 chances, and clearly speaks volume of the issue that we've been talking about. Create a lot of chances, but we are unable to finish. And I think it's an issue that has been persistent. It has led us to, make a huge investment in signing a player for around 70 million pounds or 70 million euro and all of that. So clearly something has to change with our forward line. The training that we do on our training grounds must reflect something that would help us be able to score, because I think it's a huge worry for us as a club. Even at Old Trafford, we play and we don't score enough goals. I find that quite worrying for me.
That that's why most people think it's even a massive gamble buying a 20-year-old boy to solve these problems rather than investing heavily in a proven Premier League player like Harry Kane.
Yeah.
But that's what's under the bridge now. Kane is in Bayern Munich and is enjoying his life, and we are left to, hope, hope beyond
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
hope that
That
Rasmus
something good
Højlund
comes out of Rasmus
comes
Højlund. Yeah.
comes good. Yeah, Højlund must come good because he's the added bit. He is the big name striker. He's going to be
Absolutely.
the main guy.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just hope it doesn't take too long for him to settle because English football can be harsh.
Yeah.
The press can be harsh. Everything it's on a different level when it comes to how things are projected in English football. So it's important that, for instance, when and if he does come into the team, he does start well, very well. Hopefully he should be involved against Forest. But I think the long-term plan is for him to be ready for the Arsenal game. I would have preferred he would be ready for a game against Forest at home, even if he's going to come off the bench to because I feel that's an easier fixture in front of a home crowd.
Yeah.
If he's able to get a goal against Forest, that will boost him enough to like
Going to the
carry him for the rest of the season.
that's
So yeah, it's profligacy in front of goal since and the solutions aren't there yet. He's invested heavily in Anthony. He's invested heavily in Højlund to be able to help curtail the problem. But then none of these two players have had an influence yet. One hasn't played, one is just off almost all the time. So
of course.
he hasn't helped his situation in terms of recruitment.
That's true.
But then again, those players who have also been there already, Rashford aside, I think everybody needs to chip in a bit. Everybody needs to step up.
I have two questions. Then we move on to look at some of the games that will be coming up over the weekend. Um, is it time to drop Garnacho?
100. 100. See, it's okay to feel if you're old enough, you're good enough. But then again, he's a 19-year-old kid who had a sterling introduction into first team football last season. I don't think we should push him too hard, especially when you have other senior alternatives who could do a job in that same position. That's Marcus Rashford's best position.
Okay.
As soon as any centre forward is available, God, let Martial be available. I'm not a big fan of Anthony Martial, but then we need him to lead the line. With every player playing in their best position, it offers us better balance.
Yes.
Get Rashford back playing on the left, get Garnacho coming off the bench to be able to change games because he seemed to be a very good impact sub last season. Get him playing that role again, get Rashford up to speed, and I think you have something going off the left side of attack. So drop Rashford. Drop. Time to drop Garnacho.
Garnacho, all right. Will Anthony Ilanga be a problem?
He hasn't started a game for Forest yet, but I have this sneaky feeling, that he's going to start.
Football and its stories. Some of the
exactly how the gods of football always try and play some funny games.
Create some sort of stories. It's the reason why I ask. Will Garnacho?
All right, this is how I see it playing out. Yeah. We could be leading 2-3, 4-0, and then he gets a consolation and everybody goes home happy.
Just like Van Persie did with Fenerbahce when he came to
Perfect.
All right, okay.
Perfect.
Right. Okay, so but I'm expecting that we go into the game against Forest a much more improved side. I'll be very disappointed that we would go into this game and still win, but do not come up with a performance that is encouraging enough, that shows some level of intent that we have what it takes to challenge the league. As it stands now, we've showed nothing, or we've had nothing to show for in terms of our ability to challenge.
But it's early days.
It's early days, I understand, but we've not showed enough to, make people believe that we are a team that can compete for the league yet.
Fair enough.
I believe there is a lot more we have to show. We need to boss games better. We need to take control of games a lot more better, and we need to make use of our chances, or the chances that we create in games, in order to be able to get the best out of everything that we give. So I think it's one key thing. We need to win, and win convincingly against Nottingham Forest on Saturday. But beyond the game that Manchester United will be playing,
what's your prediction?
I'm expecting a 3-0 win for Manchester United.
I think we're still going to concede. I go 3-1.
You go 3-1. All right, let's see how it goes. All right, so Kwame believes that we'll win 3-1. I still think that we'll have enough within us to keep a clean sheet in this game. But the other games that will be coming up on Friday evening, Chelsea play against Luton Town. I saw a very interesting statistic today. Enzo Fernandez.
I knew you were going to do this.
Enzo Fernandez. Chelsea fans, I I don't understand. What is the problem? Since Enzo Fernandez came into the league, he's won just one league game, and that was a game against Bournemouth.
No, 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 no. I think it's more like he's won one league game against a team that's presently in the league.
That's
He's
again. Interesting.
the other wins were against teams that were relegated last season.
Oh, I see.
So of the teams that are present in the
Present in the
league,
league.
he's won only one game, and that's against Bournemouth. That's the
That's very
that's
interesting. That's very
atrocious.
interesting. It's atrocious. But they come up against Luton Town on Friday. What do you make? Do you think it's Mauricio Pochettino will be winning his first game of the season?
I think it's obvious. Luton, you know my thoughts on Luton. I think they're going to get lower points than Derby County did. So say Chelsea are gonna win.
Chelsea are going to
First
win
win for
this game.
Poch, yeah.
But the highlight of the weekend will be Newcastle United versus Liverpool. Last season, among
Mm-hmm.
the few teams that were able to pick maximum points at the St. James were Liverpool and Arsenal.
Yeah.
Every other team that went there suffered some form of baptism. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like the atmosphere Newcastle creates at the St. James.
Outstanding.
It's electric.
Outstanding.
I mean, you could feel the place bouncing anytime that they play at the St. James Park. What are your expectations? Liverpool have now gotten Endo to play in the defensive midfield role. They've had
Yeah.
the red card for McAllister overturned. Dominic Soboslai is still in there. So they have their midfield trio. I think they have one of the most potent attacks in the league. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know, going into this game against Newcastle, what's your take on that?
They were impressive in their home game, their last home game. Despite going down by a man, I think they were in control. They did create a lot of chances against Bournemouth, but then it's Bournemouth. So that's a totally different kind of worms. Newcastle at the St. James is it's hard. That's a tough game.
Yes.
And the thing about Liverpool now is they're playing a couple of opponents that may well be their top four rivals very early. So if they're able to get points against these teams, it leaves them in good stead. But I'm never going to back Liverpool against anyone. So yeah, so I do expect Newcastle to give them a run for their money. I do expect Newcastle to pick up points. I do expect Newcastle to win. So Newcastle will beat Liverpool because I still feel Liverpool's midfield has some questions.
Most have come questions.
I don't think Endo is the guy. I just think he's a stopgap for someone they could actually sign
I
in the
in the
near
course
future. They
of
can't rush things anymore. They can't. They missed out on Lavia. They missed out on Caicedo. They must as well just slow things down a bit and then scout and get somebody a long-term replacement. So Endo is just. I don't think he adds enough to their midfield. So I expect them to struggle a bit at the St. James.
Will Brighton be a problem this season?
Brighton are going to be Brighton. Brighton are still have immense talent in their squad. They're going to be exciting. They're already exciting. They're already getting points. I do expect them to get into Europe again. They'll be in around the fifth, sixth, seventh position. And I expect them to make some noise in the Europa League, make some noise in the Europa League. But then when you say would there be a problem, are you talking about a top four
I
threat?
mean,
I
yes,
don't think.
breaking into the top four.
I don't think there'll be a top four threat, to be honest. I think there are just too many good teams, pedigree wise and squad wise and quality wise,
Yeah.
that would stand in their way. But then they'll make some noise. They'll win some big games against really big teams. But then in terms of accumulating enough points to be in a top four, I don't think. I think that's a stretch.
City are winning against Sheffield, right? We need not to go into that
Uh-uh.
game.
So that's the problem. They just seem inevitable. And
Of
it,
course,
it
you
kills
clearly
me.
see that this is a team
It kills me.
that
Don't even have
that
to
is
play
why
well to win. They just
that
have the quality to win.
that is they
But then,
they are just too good. I think it's
but Abba, their coach is not available. I think he had a surgery not
yes,
too
yes.
long ago on his back. He's going
Does
to
it
be
change
away for
anything?
quite. Hopefully. Hopefully. Because he does influence things on the touchline.
Of course, of course.
I'm not just talking about his antics. I'm talking about the pressure he gives his team to be able to keep at it, and then his substitutions and everything. An assistant coach isn't him. So I'm just hoping against hope
What
that
if he's communicating with?
it's not the same as being there.
It's not the same.
It's not the same as being there. It's never the same. There's always a stark difference.
Yes.
Being on the touchline and shouting the ears of your players and making instant, quick decisions, reacting to stuff and talking on the phone. So I'm just hoping that it takes a bit away from Manchester City if they're able to drop some points here. I always say if you hang on to the tailcoat of Manchester City, you'll be there or thereabouts because they'll always be there at the end of the day.
Of course.
I don't look at anybody else.
Of course.
But then it just seemed inevitable. It hurts. It really hurts my soul.
Arsenal, Fulham.
Arsenal have started the season well. I have to give them their props. Mikel Arteta has that team figured out. Mentality-wise, squad-wise, I think they are there. And they are grinding out results. Despite the red card they had at Palace and the pressure that they came under, I always felt they were in control. I always felt like they had the measure of Palace and they were able to see the game out. That was a sign of maturity for me because the old Arsenal crumbles, but everybody knows the old Arsenal, they crumble. But then this Arsenal seemed to have some steel about them.
You could see that they've built this resilience and ability to, hold on to, at the back of their minds, they are able to hold on to this belief that even though we're a man down, we still have to be in control of affairs.
They believe they can win the title. You can feel this is a team that believes they can challenge.
Absolutely.
They can actually
and it's the same core of players and they've had experience of disappointment, so they know how to channel it into getting themselves out of that. All right, thank you very much, Kwame. Thank you so much to everyone that joined us on this exciting episode of United and Everything Football. We looked at United and we looked at everything football in the Premier League. Thank you so much. We hope that you join us for our next episode. And guess what? We are having a special guest joining us on the next episode of this podcast. Just stick and stay, be with us, and then we'll review to you the special guest. A
very, very important media personality. I'm giving something away.
Very, very, very important media personality will be joining us on the next episode of this podcast. Thank you so much, Kwame. Remember to do what? Hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell, such that when new episodes drop, you'll be part of the first people to enjoy everything that we've given to you here on United and Everything Football. Thank you so much. We hope to see you in our next episode. Have a great time.